Hi everyone, and welcome to the first of one of my political science debunking videos. This one is entitled Fascism is a leftist ideology. It has nothing to do with conservatism nor the ideological right. In this video I will take you through detailed steps to show you why this assertion is correct and why it was made. So sit back, relax, and prepare to be entertained. Class is now in session. Thank you. What we will now be looking at the common man understanding of fascism. And here we go. Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian, ultranationalist political ideological movement characterized by a dictatorial popular leader usually associated with centralized, autocratic, and strong militarism, and with the forcible suppression of all opposition. And is usually associated with Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini, and most recently Donald J. Trump, the former president of the United States. So most of these definition, part of these definition are actually correct, but the most glaring misconception is that fascism is a far right, authoritarian, far right ideology, and this is the fallacy that I will be debunking in this episode of my debunking series. So where did the term fascism actually comes or originate from? Fascism comes from the word fascist, which refers to a bundle of M or birch rods, usually containing an axe, used as a symbol for penal authority in ancient Rome. As you can see on your right, the axe. The philosophy of fascism was formulated by an Italian philosopher by the name of Giovanni Gentili, born May 29th, 1875, and died April 15, 1944 in Florence. He was a major theorist supplying the justificatory rationale of fascism as a development form of dictatorial for status-driven nations languishing on the margin of the great powers around that time. He was considered the father and philosopher of fascism, and was a professor of history of philosophy at the University of Rome. Later became a minister of education in Mussolini's fascistic government of Italy from October 1922 to July 1924. Giovanni's idealist philosophy denied the existence of the individual mindset. He hates the individual. Giovanni was therefore a collectivist. He believed that everything should be surrounded around the collective mentality and not the individual mentality. Fascism, properly defined. Fascism is associated with a centralized, popularist, autocratic, extremely militaristic, nationalist government headed by a dictatorial leader. Fascism as the contempt for electoral democracy, political and cultural liberalism. Fascism as a strong belief in the natural social hierarchy and the rule of elites. Europe's first fascist leader Benito Mussolini called his party the fascist party because it represents authority and strength, as it was shown below with that axe and stick. Fascism exalts a nation's interests over and above the individual interests. All citizens must fall in line for the ultimate benefit of the nation without any question or dissent. Individual interests would be subordinate to the good of the nation. And finally, fascism is therefore a collectivist ideology, and we will be exploring in later slide what collectivist is. Collectivist is a term that is synonymous with those on the left. We will now be looking at some important components of fascism. Fascism is the depraved offspring or blending of these three following equally destructive collectivist ideologies, and they are as follows. 1. Socialism, a leftist government show of pseudo compassion and concern for the poor and dispossessed in society, and use this pseudo compassion to put and keep themselves in power. It is considered the first step towards communism. Corporatism, the control of a state by or organization by a large interest group. They use the use of financial clout and power to prive and or intimidate their opponent into compliance. The well-connected corruption of the free market capitalistic process by the wealthy ruling class, also known as oligarchs and technocrats. And number 3, crony capitalism, the adulteration of the capitalistic process due to the collusion between usually leftist government and the wealthy ruling class mentioned above, to limit free market capitalism and to thus enrich and empower themselves. Based on these components, today elitist globalists are therefore totally fascistic in nature. And as you can see from the diagram on the right, that in the third sentence where it says that fascism is a combination of pro-capitalist and left-wing ideology. These are the three left-wing ideology that makes up fascism, which make it such a dangerous and dangerous ideology. What is collectivism ideology? Collectivism is a political theory. It's a political theory associated and supports a highly form of centralized government power. Historically, centralization was very beneficial for all involved, but over time, as with other things, absolute power corrupt absolutely, with leader abusing their authority, some thinking that they have the divine right to rule. So it was beneficial historically because when we come together, we tend to have safety in numbers. In a collective government system, all individuals is bounded and directed to work for the benefit of the country or nation that is ruled exclusively by a few elitist individuals whose authority can very rarely be questioned. In these governments are generally authoritarian and oppressive, and usually created by brute force, might make right. To seize power over the population, in most cases placing the previous form of government, which in most cases were very repressive regime themselves. In a country or nation that is not collectivist, the individual has the freedom to work for their personal benefit and betterment in a country that is governed by an elected group of representatives with a constitution in place stating the rules of law and the extent of their power over the people. All are bound to work together for the betterment of the country involved. Constitutionalism is antithetical to collectivism, which represent mankind hard fought and struggle for their civil rights and freedom from all form of collectivist government. We will be looking at some example of collectivist government, and they are as follows: absolutist monarchy, kingdoms, empires, military regimes, oligarchies, theocracies, kleptocracies, fascistic dictatorship. We all know about that one, Nazism and fascism, and communistic dictatorship. These are some collectivist form of government, the main form of collective government that most of us know. We will now look at some of the ideologies that support collectivist authorities, and they are as follows: monarchism, which is the divine right to rule; absolutism; feudalism; colonialism; imperialism; socialism; communism; fascism; corporatism; crony capitalism; cultural Marxism, which is the first stage of neo-Marxists; and globalism, which is a worldwide communistic agenda, second stage, neo-Marxism. So how are collective government formed? They are formed in many ways. Collective government or authorities are generally made possible by some form of coercion, might make right mentality, and involve the following: direct intimidation and threats, invasion, declaring war against a nation and subjugating it, the instigation of internal civil war and economic chaos, ethnic and racial cleansing, genocides, terrorism, coup, infiltration and subversion of its functional institution, and popularist revolutions. We will now look at some historical example of one tyrannical form of government displacing another, and in most cases is evident by populist revolution against a monarchy. One, the Russian Revolution gave rise to communism. The French Revolution, which ended in an empire dictator. The Chinese Revolution, which ended in communism, rise of communism. Italy and Germany revolution, which gave rise to fascism. And here we will now be looking at some historical example of successful revolution against tyrannical systems and governments. They are as follows: the Enlightenment against the old age ignorance and superstition that supported tyrannical government and systems. So this Enlightenment is an example of processes and systems that remove the old age and superstition. Number two, the American Revolution against the British monarchy that gave rise to the first operational constitution of any country in the world. Number three, the Protestant Reformation against the hegemony of the Catholic Church. The emancipation movement against the institution of slavery. These are all successful revolution against tyranny in one form or the other. National independence movement against colonial imperialism, and the development of constitution against monarchical reigns. We will now have a better look at constitutionalism, which is regarded as the bulk word to collectivism. So, A constitution is a set of fundamental law and principles that establish the legal basis for a country, organization, or other entity. It defines how the government is governed, and it creates and defines the power of the government institution and branches. It also guarantees certain individual rights for the people that cannot be broken. Constitutionalism was the first set of ideas that resulted from the historical revolution to check the excessive of human collective authoritarian government. Authoritarianism is very much the opposite of the concept of constitutionalism, and thus with authoritarian aspiration are also always arguing in favor of the following. So these are the factors. This is what authoritarian government or individual will always be arguing for. Number one, the ever increasing power of the government over individual life. Two, the constant quest to suspend or curtail civil liberties such as freedom of speech and the right to bear arms. Three, the respect and hatred of political plurality. They want to be in the perpetual power for themselves. They don't want to share power. The use of lawfare against their political opponents, and the lack of the constant attack on a constitution. And six, the constant undermining of the rule of law to create chaos and division and confusion so that they can put themselves and install themselves in power. So as you will see, constitutionalism is in fact conservatism, and therefore if we look at the ideas of conservatism, we see that they run hand in hand with constitutionalism. So let us look at these the principles of conservatism. The goal of conservatism is to maintain the constitution, aka the rule of negotiated law, and not the opposition to change or innovation as those on the left would have us believe. Conservatives are only interested in the maintenance of the following: 1. Individual freedom. 2. Civil rights under that constitution. The rule of law. Limited government whose job is to protect the civil rights of the citizen. A moral code. Free market entrepreneurialism, also known as capitalism. The virtue of self-reliance as opposed to government dependence. Private property ownership. Equal access to opportunities. The recognition that man is a fundamental flawed creature, and therefore there can be no utopia on earth as usually promised by those on the left. The importance of a system of checks and balances. The belief in the nuclear family. The belief that man and woman are biological and intrinsically different, and whose rights must be independently protected, and that man and woman depend on each other for survival. We will now be looking at the ideological spectrum, and as we all know, the current ideological spectrum is we are currently deceptively led to believe that the ideological spectrum is one that varies between those on the left and those on the right. And as you can see from my drawing on your right, you see the normal accepted ideological spectrum where you have the far right and the far left, and within, just in the center of the far right and far left, you find the centralists. The centralists will be synonymous to the constitutionalists or constitutional government. As you can see, the actual political spectrum is that of the constitutionalists versus the collectivists. So if we bend this far right and far left angle spectrum of the normally accepted ideological, it gives the actual ideological spectrum as shown by the diagram, where you have the two end comes around far right and far left meeting each other. So far right and far left eventually become one, aka authoritarian collectivists. So far right and far left are actually known as authoritarian collectivists, with the centralists actually now becoming the constitutional conservative. So therefore, the more you venture from the edits of a country constitution, the more authoritarian you become and want power for yourself at the expense of others. So this is very important to illustrate that far right, the so-called far right and far left are actually ideologically very similar to each other, and not as far from each other as they would like us to believe. So what does the term Nazi really mean? This term is used by those on the ideological left to demonize those on the ideological right, synonymous with calling them evil, racist, and misogynistic. The real meaning of Nazi is National Socialist German Workers' Party. And if you see that word in the that is colored yellow, socialist. Hitler was the leader of the Nazi Party of Germany. What the left wants us to all to ignore is the socialist part of the name and only concentrate on the nationalist part of that name. A nationalist is the definition of a person who loves his or her country and thus anyone can be a nationalist. I am a nationalist because I love my country. I love my country, Canada, so I'm a nationalist for Canada. There's nothing wrong with that. However, a socialist is very particular to a specific political ideology, which is very synonymous with those on the left. The Nazi Party of Germany was fascistic ideologically, and therefore were just as collectivist as that of the Fascist Party in Italy around the same time. Therefore, both movements belong exclusively on the left side of the ideological spectrum as we now currently know it, and was only projected onto the right when it was discovered how horrendous both were historically. Marxism, conservatism, and civilization. How are these related? As you can see from my diagram to the right, we have a pyramid of the human civilization process, a pyramid of the progress of human civilization, and as you can see, it goes from level 1 to level 4, antiquity to modernity to liberalism and to law and order, our current state of civilization at the top, at the apex. So as you can see, Marxism is the root. Marxism is opposed to 3 levels of this pyramid. They're opposed to modernity and liberalism and the institutions that we have currently in place. They want to change these levels, and changing these levels will only bring us down back to inequity. They want to destroy these levels. They want to bring it back down to antiquity, where there's superstition, collectivism, tyranny, and a constant war and invasions. So since Marxism is the root of the ideology of socialism, fascism, and communism, postmodernism is a term used to describe a variety of artistic, cultural, and philosophical movements that emerges as a reaction to modernism. They don't like modernism, they want to destroy modernism. Marxists can be classified as postmodernists whose objective can be characterized by the rejection of and skepticism of universal truth and objective reality. Marxism is thus the greatest threat to civilization and is in a constant battle with conservatism to tear down civilization as we know it and to bring back the age of antiquity. And as you can see, conservatism wants to preserve these 3 levels of level 4, level 3, and level 2, and ensure that civilization is maintained. So there you have it. We are in a spiritual war and not a political war. The war and conflicts of the world are not political in nature as we have been led to believe. They are spiritual war. We are in a spiritual war. Spiritual warfare is a Christian concept that describes the conflict between God's kingdom of light and Satan's kingdom of darkness. It is based on the belief that evil spirits, which are called demons from Satan, and the angels from God are actively involved in human affairs for the final end of days outcome, a battle. It is a battle basically of good versus evil. It is a battle of humanity freedom, peace and prosperity over humanity tyranny, war, poverty and suffering. It is a battle waged by the very powerful, corrupted, global elitist minority against the rest of humanity in an effort to enslave and control the world. So this, my friend, is the conclusion of my first non-climate change debunking video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it was informative, and that you see without a doubt that the ideology of fascism, Nazism, all belongs to their leftist collective ideology, destructive to mankind, very corrosive and very destructive to mankind, and it's just evil, pure evil. So thank you for your time if you make it up to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next of my upcoming debunking video. Thank you and bye.